So yeah, so I just started recording. So if you're listening to the recording, guys, the 11th of April, then we're doing Module 5. But just giving a bit of advice on some of the guys who are going in for their testing in the next couple of weeks. Basically, what the last guy that I trained who went through was about 2 weeks ago, and he was, oh, you're going tomorrow, Michael? Cool. So basically what he was given was obviously his multiple choice, and then after that he was given a raft slab, and then was also given he had to design the roof outline, where there was 3 different sort of hips or gables, and they were all different spans, so they didn't actually marry up. So if anyone actually hasn't got the plan of how that's actually drawn, where you're going to draw your hips in, draw your ridges, and then your broken hips, let me know and I'll forward that over to you so you can look at it and see how it marries up, because it's pretty difficult if you're not familiar with it. I know when I looked at it, and Ben had it when he did, I thought, geez, that's actually going to take a bit of time to try and figure that out. So if you need that, let me know and I'll send it over. And actually what I'll probably do, I'll just send it anyway. And the other thing too, my advice would be the guys who have gone through recently have actually told me when it comes to whether the fault finding and basically doing the computations, there's actually a lot in it at the moment. So my advice would be, and this is what the other guys have said as well, is try and finish a multiple choice as quick as you can, and then use that extra time to actually be doing your plans. Because the guy who I trained last time, the last guy I trained who went through, who was about 2 weeks ago, he went in there and did his multiple choice and got it done in sort of 40 to 45 minutes. And because he answered the questions that he wasn't sure about, but he flagged them so he could come back to them and recheck them. And he thought, okay, I've got an hour to do this, got plenty of time up my sleeve. So for the next 15 minutes, he actually spent making sure those ones that he'd flagged, that he actually got them right, used his full hour, and then went on to basically the plans, and he didn't get his plans finished in time. And he came out thinking that he failed, but he was lucky that obviously what he completed, he must have got 100% of it right, and he probably completed 80% of it. So therefore he got an 80% mark, and he actually basically passed, and now he's going back for his interview. So my advice, and his and the last couple of guys that have gone through, have just said there seems to be so much in the plan side of it, so to try and allocate yourself as much time for that as you can. So that'd be my advice. So if you smash through that multiple choice, and then try and get onto those plans as quickly as you can. So by all means too, if you've got any questions, because Michael's going in tomorrow, if there's anything you're not sure of, Michael, either during tonight's presentation or at the end, by all means, mate, ask me and I'll see if I can help you out, but I'm sure you'll be ready to go. Is yours, Michael, an interview, or are you going for the multiple choice? Interview. All right, cool. No, you'll be right with the interview then, mate. Basically, for the interview, I'm sure if you can talk about all your jobs, just a couple of things they'll quiz you on is basically that won't be there in front of you with your jobs. You'll get a little bit about contracts. Shouldn't say a little bit, a fair bit about contracts, when you can use cost plus, just the stuff we've been covering in the class, mate. So if you're obviously confident with that, mate, go in very confident. Most guys go in nervous, and it's natural. But by all means, mate, the amount of people who we've trained who are now getting through, we're up above 400. So what we're training is obviously working. And so, mate, just go in and you've done the work, so just be confident with it. All right. So what I'll do, guys, I'll start onto this. I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is a bit more something for, I suppose, your own benefit, not something you'll be asked on when you go in there. And what I might do, guys, I'm just getting a little bit of feedback. I might just chuck you on mute, and if you want to take yourself off mute, just type me in the box and say, hey, Adam, can you unmute me? And I can unmute people as an individual. I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting a bit of feedback on my end, so just in case, I'll just mute everybody to get rid of that. All right, so what this is just something from the VBA, and I'll make that fractionally bigger for you. So if you haven't actually heard, basically there's going to be a 5-year registration period now. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing. I'll just basically show you the parts which most guys have a lot of questions about, and then from there I'll email it out and you guys can read the whole thing in your own time. So I said not anything you're going to be tested on, but just a bit of, for your own information. So this part here talks about 5-year registration period and the change. So from September last year, the registration of building practitioners will be subject to a 5-year registration period. This means a practitioner will be required to reapply for registration every 5 years. previously practitioners were registered until their registration was either cancelled or it was suspended. So with that too, a lot of people go, geez, am I going to have to do this whole thing again in 5 years' time? To be honest with you guys, no one really knows at this stage, but the way that we interpret it, because obviously once you get registered, you got 5 years, and so they actually haven't outlined exactly what's going to happen. But in our opinion, what's going to happen from our sort of dealings with the VBA is that, putting it bluntly, I think those, or the old guys sitting on their license who aren't doing anything, go, hey mate, look, you want to re-register your license, you actually haven't built anything in 5 years, so you might have to show how you've stayed current in the industry, because as you know, things change a lot in 5 years with our legislation, our standards get upgraded, our building code gets done every year, so these guys who aren't doing anything need to show how they're still current in the industry. And I'll read through a couple of these things. So it talks here, and I won't read all this, you can see that, but it talks here about, the transition period. So you guys obviously be the full 5 years because you'll be getting registered in the next couple of months. And I'll come down to this part here. So probably one of the biggest things that guys actually ask me is for guys who say, so I got a question from Valavan. No, so it's for everybody, Valavan. So basically, anyone who's registered, then basically they will have to apply within basically 5 years as well. So that's where it's got up here in this sheet up here, where it talks about basically your period when you're registered to when that actually runs out. So you'll see that in there when you go through it. So everyone will have to basically reapply, and so it just depends on when you got registered last to when that registration period runs out. So probably the biggest question that guys ask, and we'll read through this here and then I'll explain it to you. So from September 2016, an owner-builder must not enter into a major domestic building contract with another person to carry out work unless the person is registered as a builder under the Act and their registration authorises the person to carry out that type of building work. And a registered building practitioner will be required to obtain a certificate of consent from the VBA if the building work they wish to undertake on their own land does not fall within the scope of their registration under the Act. So the two sort of parts there is that you might have noticed that basically previously I've had a couple of guys who will sign on with me in Geelong because they were basically cabinet makers and doing kitchen and bathroom stuff, but most of it was done actually under registered builders, so they didn't need to be registered, but they would then have the odd basically owner builder who would engage them, and those owner builders have now been told, hey listen, we can't engage you unless you're actually registered. So the owner builders are being told they can only use registered building practitioners. So that's one of the changes, and might be maybe some of the reasons why you guys decided to get registered. But then the other part that I just read in that bottom left hand corner, what was previously done was if you were basically say a carpenter or a bricklayer, when I say carpenter, registered DBL in carpentry or in block laying, then it was acceptable practice to actually do your own developments on your own land. So you could basically buy a block of land, do a spec home and then sell it, or actually build your own. But what's actually happened now, if you read that bottom paragraph, it says a registered building practitioner will be required to obtain a certificate of consent from the VBA if the building work they wish to undertake on their own land does not fall within their scope of their registration. So now obviously if you're a registered bricklayer, you can't build a whole house on your own land without getting that certificate of consent from the VBA. So our understanding, I don't know anyone who's done it yet because obviously the changes only came in September last year, but our understanding of that document is yeah, it's obviously still acceptable, but you've just got to get written consent from the VBA before you do it. And this is only my opinion. In my opinion, I can't see why they would say no, because if they're still letting people do owner builds, why would they not let someone who's actually already registered basically do that on their own land? So that's just my understanding of it. So and then it says a building practitioner who wants to be an owner builder will have to obtain a certificate of consent if they wish to undertake the building work for which they are not registered. So a couple of little changes there. And then I'll talk to you about this one down here. This is a continuing professional development. So what that is basically professional development is basically study that you guys would do. It doesn't have to be study, it can be courses, it can be going to seminars, but basically professional development is it's actually in my profession, and what am I doing to develop my skills? And if you put it in the terms of, say, a doctor, with new vaccines coming out and new methods for treating cancer and all those types of things, obviously your local GP, he's got to do something to stay across, what these new medicines and so on, and new technology that's coming out to treat people. And it's no different within building. So as a builder, the VBA is now going to want to see that how are we actually staying across new building technologies and being current, so we're not still building stuff, out of hardwood, where we're basically checking in all our bottoms and top plates and so on. And not only in building practices, but also our legislation. So that's what you'll see CPD stands for continuing professional development. And when you read down here, just basically talks about how, in future, I'll read through it if you like. So there will be no immediate impact as a result of that change. So any potential continual professional development requirements will need to be developed, agreed and included in the building regulations before they can take effect. So they actually haven't been developed yet. They're just saying this is something that that's going to happen in the future, but at the moment we haven't outlined exactly what it is. And just in my opinion, I see that's what they're going to basically do. If you're building all the time, then I can't see why you'd have to do too much professional development. You might have to maybe go to a master builder seminar once or twice a year and get some points up, and that would show you, if you've gone to a 3-hour seminar, then you basically get this many points, and you'd have to get so many points a year. And the only reason I'm familiar with it, because I actually do Certificate 4 and Diploma of Building Construction Training, and that's one thing that I have to do to basically show how I'm still current in the building industry, and not some old fogey who hasn't been on a job site for 30 years, but I'm still teaching guys how to do it. So because I'm familiar with it on my training side, I think it'll be very similar when it comes to your registration. And to be honest with you, it's not that hard to meet. And if you decided to go and do some sort of course, you did like an estimating course, that might give you so many points, and you get a copy of the certificate, and basically you put it over and say, this is what I've done. You could even do first aid, and that's going to be part of your OH&S requirements, to have a first aider on site, and they could be points towards your professional development. So they won't always be specifically building. But anyway, have a read through that, guys, and that's just about all the changes. Talks here about, we don't need to go this one, this is about a fit and proper person. So I think every 5 years you've got to get a police check as well when you reapply, to make sure that you're not a scammer and taking people's deposits and running off. So it's a pretty interesting document. So I will send that over, and I said nothing that you'll be quizzed on, but just a bit of for your information, so you can basically find a bit more about your career and what's going to happen in the next 5 years. All right, so a couple of things I just want to cover that's got to do with tonight's presentation is basically about our domestic building insurance. So let me just bring this up. Sorry for the blank screen for you guys. All right, so I don't know if you guys have got a copy of this in your folder, but I'll definitely email that over in case you haven't. Someone asked me last week about how does the domestic building insurance work, and this basically outlines it, and I'll email this over too. So I'll read through it word for word, so then we can have a chat about it and try and clarify it if it doesn't make sense. So with our domestic building insurance, it's provided by a builder, so you guys, when you get licensed in the coming months, when the cost of the building work under the contract with the builder is worth more than $16,000. So that $16,000 includes our labour and our materials. It's not like saying, okay, well, it's 20 grand for materials and only 10 bucks in labour, so I don't need to worry about it. If the total contract including those is $16,000, then it needs to have the insurance next to it. So a claim against the builder's warranty insurance can only be made should the builder die, go bankrupt, or otherwise cannot be found. So basically what's that saying is that you guys, as we've spoken about using our regulations in our act, is that you guys are liable for that building for the 10 years, but what the insurance does, and we'll read a bit further, is covers them for 6 years. So it's giving that owner of the building a bit of peace of mind, saying, hey, listen, Adam just built me this house, I've paid $300,000. What happens if he goes bankrupt in the next 6 months? I heard he's not doing real well. They want to make sure that their new home is actually still going to be under some type of warranty, and that's going to be under your homeowner's insurance warranty that you take out. So they would come to you if there's structural defects and go, hey Adam, listen, I've got this big crack because the footing's sunk or it's heaved or whatever, I need you to come and fix it. And then I would be liable to go and fix that. but obviously if I'm not there, then that would then go through the homeowner's warranty insurance or the builder's warranty insurance, and they would claim through there. So if a property owner sells their house within 6 years of the completion of the building work, the domestic building insurance, whether provided by an owner builder or a registered building practitioner, will cover the purchase of that property. So I know that none of us are owner builders, or otherwise we wouldn't be doing this course, but just so you guys are aware that if I did something as an owner builder and then I sold it 12 months later, me as the owner builder would actually have to pay what's we're looking for, like a premium to basically cover that insurance, because obviously I'm an owner builder, and then when I move on, they say, hey, listen, Adam, you're an owner builder, we need you to come and fix this. And I'd be like, well, guess what, mate, I'm an accountant, I don't actually know how to fix it. So therefore that claim would then go on to, it gets carried over basically to the new owner, because once I've moved on, the person who buys the house from me as an owner builder needs to have that that cover over their work as well. So the owner builders are required under the Building Act to provide warranty insurance for building work they've carried out on their property if the value of the work was $16,000 or greater for the remainder of the 6 years. So if you sell after 3 years, then you've only got to pay what is then the premium on the remaining 3 years. And it's important that owners understand that the insurance policy is for the benefit of the purchaser, and the owner builder or registered builder will be responsible for ensuring that the building work complies with the relevant legislation. Now this is where it gets a little bit, some guys might be a little bit confused, because it says, please note, domestic building work more than $16,000 will require domestic building insurance, because it used to be $12,000. So don't get those figures mixed up. Used to be $12,000, now it's $16,000. So anywhere 16 grand needs to have the homeowner's warranty insurance attached to it, and it will cover costs up to $300,000 for structural defects. That used to be $200,000, so it's $300,000. So if those structural, say I die, I become insolvent, and someone wants to claim against me, and they've got to go to my homeowner's warranty because I'm no longer around, and the works work out to be $350,000, well, that owner is only covered up for $300,000. So there is a cap on it. So yeah, obviously if it's $1 million problem, they're only going to get $300,000 from the homeowner's warranty insurance. And that's for structural defects for 6 years and non-structural defects for 2 years. So your non-structural is 2 years. Now, I'm pretty sure that's not written in, because it's been updated in 2014. I don't think it's actually in your act or your regulations. So I've actually written, and maybe I've just got an older version than you guys, but I've just handwritten that in there too. When it talks about the 10-year liability period in my Building Act, I've just got handwritten in there, basically 6 years structural and 2 years non-structural. And then I've got, the costs up to $300,000. So what if you sold your business? Yeah, that's a good one, Wayne. I've got a question from Wayne saying here, so what if you sold your business? That's one, to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure about it, because I would think, and this is only my opinion, I'll find this out for you, in my opinion, because if you're basically trading as a company, surely when that company closes down, that company is no longer there. So like I just think of, like these big building companies, that we have. You think of like of Metricon Homes. I don't know who actually owns Metricon, but I presume it's probably a few people who own it. Even if Metricon, there'd be some volume builder where there's a few there who actually probably own the business, and it would be set up as a company, I presume, to actually minimise their risk, I suppose, if something went wrong, and protecting their assets. So yeah, so that part of me makes me think, okay, they wouldn't be able to actually claim them, go against them, and it would be homeowner's warranty. But then the other part of me thinks, well, hang on, someone in that company actually had to own the builder's license. So yeah, I'm not 100% sure, Wayne, but I will. That seems like one for more my more my lawyer. Not that I have a lawyer, but I'll definitely see if I can track down some information on that, mate, and I'll get back to you about it, because it's sort of a bit of a grey area. And there's something else we'll read later as well, where it's from a master builder's website, and it even says itself that it's a bit of a grey area. And yeah, I'll show you that one when we get up to a little bit later on. So yeah, I'll definitely find that and basically get back to you. All right, so I'll just close that one there down. And then the next thing, guys, that I just want to have a quick chat about. Sorry that it's gone blank again. I'm just bringing up my next document. is this one here. So this is a Master Builders one. Sorry guys, I'm trying to bring this over onto the screen and it doesn't want to work for me. There we go. Just make this a little bit bigger. Same thing again, I won't read through all of this, just the parts which I think is worth having a chat about. So it just says what is domestic building work. So in here it just actually outlines, because we'll do some questions later on, and it says what is domestic building work, and just so you're aware, because that's how we know when we've got to have our homeowner's warranty insurance, and because if it doesn't fall under domestic building work, well then it doesn't need to basically have it there. So what it's got here is landscaping, paving and the erection or construction of any building or fixture with the home, such as retaining structures, driveways, fences, garages, carports, workshops, swimming pools or spas, and the supply of lighting, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, water supply, sewerage or drainage to the home. And then it just talks down about here how we've got anything over $5,000, we need to be registered and actually have a contract for that. And then it says here, this is probably one that you guys probably know, and that's why you signed on to get your license, but just in case we'll go over it. So can an unregistered person do domestic building work on a job valued over $5,000? So unregistered persons may, as a rule, not carry out building work, and there are some very limited exceptions for the rule. So when we read through that, but basically it just says no registration is needed whenever a person who is a subcontractor, the person basically acts as a subby then to a registered builder, because obviously we don't need it then because the builder's taking on the responsibility and we're just subcontracting to him. Talks to you about cost plus, guys. We've covered that in the past before about how we can't use it for stuff over $500,000. So you can have a read through that one again if you like. We've spoken about deposits, so we can move on past that one there. This is probably one here you might want to read in your own time too. It's just about how you deal with your variations. So my advice is always, let's just get it in writing, whether it's requested by the owner or it's by us. Basically get it in writing, and even though our contract act says the percentage, I'm pretty sure it's 2%. If it's more than less than 2%, you don't have to, but my advice would be getting everything basically in writing. Talks about our provisional sums, what our liquidated damages are, homeowner's warranty insurance, which you just covered, and the next one, just trying to find it. I've gone past it. Sorry, guys. Oh, that does talk here, guys, about having owners give you access to the site. So if you're not too sure about it, what happens if the owner wants access to the site during construction? So we need to provide the owner with reasonable access to the building site on reasonable terms, and this should always be under the builder's supervision and under your control. And it says, remember, you are entitled to ensure that the owner does not interfere with carrying out the building works. And then it says, what happens if the owner denies the builder access to the site? So the builder has a contractual license to do all the works necessary under the contract, and the owner needs to provide the builder with free and uninterrupted access to the site. If the owner denies the builder access or asks the builder to leave site, then there will be contractual implications, and the builder should obtain urgent legal advice. So just because you might have a bit of a disagreement with your owner, and they go, I'm not happy, mate, I don't want you coming back, blah, 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 they actually can't do that. And if you read your contract when you sign it, basically we've got access to the site and they can't deny us that. And that's pretty much, that was the other part I want to cover. We spoke about that before. What is the period of warranty insurance? So and I'll send those over and you guys can have a read through those. And then basically one of the other things I wanted to show you guys, and I don't know if you have seen this document before, but this is basically about license lending. So because one of the questions we're going to do tonight in our presentation is, so I got Valavan. One second, mate. Valavan just wants me to unmute him for a sec. Fire away, Valavan.
Just to ask you about the homeowner warranty insurance. And what I want to ask is, the homeowner insurance is for their individual license, isn't it? And as for the VBA, they're saying like it's for the individual, whoever getting the license, and that is the person or having the insurance. Yeah. When it comes to the company registration, and so the thing the individual is getting, so I mean in terms of claims, and the individual is responsible for it, or the company is responsible for it?
Well, I'm sure it's the individual. Yeah, you might have it set up as a company so that obviously the cost and everything else is paid by your company, but you can only get the insurance if you're a registered building practitioner. So yeah, it depends on how your company sets it up. That you might have it so that it's, you know, the premium and everything comes out of your company funds, but at the end of the day, it's actually attached to your own license, because you can't become a registered building practitioner without it. So when you guys actually, and it's sort of funny, well not funny, but what used to happen was that before you went for your building license, you know, probably 12 months ago, you used to actually have to show a letter of eligibility that would say, yep, if I get registered, QBE will actually insure me, because they wouldn't give you your license without it. But what used to happen was that it cost you a couple of $100 to actually get your letter of eligibility, and then these guys wouldn't get their license, and then they'd go, well, hang on, I've just shelled out $200 to QBE because the VBA told me I had to, and now I can't even get the insurance, so what happens to the $200 I just paid out? So now, depending on when you put your license in, a lot of you guys probably actually haven't applied for that letter of eligibility yet. It sort of seems to be happening now. Once the guys get licensed, they're sort of told, yep, you've got your license, but we need this before basically before we can give you a license. That's then when you sort out your homeowner's warranty insurance. But yeah, I'll find it when I find out about Wayne's, because that'll tie in about when you sell your business. I'll just find out how those guys who are actually like a larger company, because I said, like, I know Gary Simmons. I used to work for Simmons. He's the old guy. He's about 90 who started up Simmons Homes, and yeah, I'm sure that it'd be set up that Simmons Homes is now actually a listed company, and I can't see that he's obviously going to. You know, he's 90, he's obviously not going to live forever, and I'll be interested to see how someone like theirs have theirs set up, because obviously all the money doesn't go to him anymore. So yeah, that's a bit beyond my knowledge, but I'll see if I can, I'll ask Steve, he's the guy to basically sort all that out. Yeah, and Michael's just got here that he's applied for his letter of eligibility, and it's taken him 2 months. Geez, I didn't even take that long, Michael. That's a bit of a pain in the bum, isn't it? But anyway, he's obviously got it. How much do they give you, Michael? 500 grand? Oh, you're still waiting, so 2 months and still waiting. Jeez. Okay, I didn't think it was that long. And just tell me, Michael, was that actually done? Yeah, so Greg was saying he was told to get his letter of eligibility, which he did, yeah. So it is one of those things that obviously if you do get it done early, then obviously you're not waiting. So if I was in your guys' shoes, I'd be getting it, just for the fact that, you know, our basically, like, our success rate is so high of guys getting through that, yeah, it's more than likely that you're going to get your license first time. So I'd be applying for mine earlier on as well. So then you get it as soon as you get licensed, you're actually ready to go. There's nothing worse than getting approved by the VBA and then having to hang around for some insurance company to take 2 to 3 months for you to actually get it done. All right, so I just got a question here from Ben, so just give me a second. He just got here, so about the warranty, the non-structural only covers 2 years. Just wondering, does the water leak from the toilet belong to structural or non-structural? I would see that as non-structural, to be honest with you, Ben. Obviously, it can create structural problems later on. But yeah, if it was just basically the toilet leaking and you had a little bit of damage to your architraves or your skirtings or something, where then that would obviously be non-structural. But yeah, I would see that as a non-structural thing, mate, unless it was underground somewhere and basically then that created it was your waste and it undermined your footing, then it would probably come into the structural side. So depending on the damage that's actually been done. All right, so let's have a look here, guys, at this license lending. So I'll send this over as well, and this is one, and I'll read through some of it. So it just says after hard, it's a bit of a scenario, but then it goes on to a real life case that happened. So after years of hard yards in the building game, including study and jumping through countless bureaucratic hoops, probably sounds like you guys at the moment, why would a registered builder let anyone else use their builder's registration to basically carry out works? And they've got this basically ancient Greek guy who wrote, "Profit is sweet even when it comes from deception." But as often with these things that seem too good to be true, the sweet profit that he was talking about can quickly sour. So what he's getting at here is basically license lending. Is you guys, when you become registered, and a mate of yours says, "Oh, listen, mate, this guy wants me to do a renovation. Can I do it, and can I do it under your license?" So just be aware. I'll read through this part here, and I might add a bit of context to it. So a licensed lending scheme typically involves a registered builder lending their builder's registration for a fee to a third party who usually does not hold registration themselves. The third party uses the registered builder's registration details to obtain warranty insurance and a building permit to carry out works, but the registered builder does not sign a contract with the owner or the principal of that property, and often has little, if any, involvement in the works. So, like I know of guys who do something similar, but it's not licensed lending because they actually sign the contract, use their homeowner's warranty insurance, and basically the guy who sort of found the work runs the job and might get paid a little bit extra because he's the one who's actually done the hard yards in getting the job, done the estimation and so on. So the way something like that, as long as you do it properly, isn't licensed lending. These guys are actually pretty much was through deception, where he's gone and used someone else's warranty insurance number and then used their builder's license, but then he signs the contract himself. So that's basically what the licensed lending is, saying, yep, I'm Adam Kent going to sign this contract with you, but I'm going to use Greg's details on the contract so the surveyor actually basically signs it off. So just be aware too that when it talks about what they got, and you guys can read it later on, it's basically about it then turned out that it was a sham contract because that the guy in this scenario, signed the contract and I wasn't registered. So then he got done for actually signing a contract basically that wasn't really, it was not enforceable because it was a sham, because you've got to be registered to sign a building contract. And then also just be aware that if it all goes through and no worries, at the end of the day, because that's under your warranty insurance, you're then the one who's liable for that. So my advice would be, don't be doing licensed lending for a bit of cash off your mates, because at the end of the day, as we know, you're responsible for it for 10 years. And so if anything goes wrong, you've got to then basically go back and fix it. And then also you look at the hard work you guys have put in. Most of you have probably been, a lot of you with us for 6 months, if not longer, and the amount of money you've spent and time invested to get there. Personally, I wouldn't be actually doing that for a little bit of extra money, just so that you can help out a mate and he can make a bit of money out of it. So there are ways that they can be done through like joint ventures and so on like that. But if you have a read through this in your own time,
Adam?
Yes, who am I talking to at the moment?
Adam? Yeah, it's Balavan.
Yeah.
Just to ask you again. Say, if I am a license holder, I'm partnered my company with another one who doesn't have a license.
Yep.
And in that case, he can sign the contract, right? Is it called license lending, or is it?
No,
okay?
no. As long as it depends on how it's set up, because same scenario again because if he's part of your company, not at all. I don't know how what you've got to do to actually have someone else sign the contract, but it can definitely be done because you've got all these volume builders, and I know Simmons Homes, Metricon, whoever those ones go to. It's not actually the license holder who actually signs the contract. So you can actually have other people within your company sign the contract. Obviously, they put, because if you're the builder, it's got your homeowner's warranty insurance, it's got your builder's license number. But it'd be something you'd have to check with a solicitor or whoever's contract you use, if you're HIA or master builders. But yeah, you can definitely have other people sign that. But somehow there's got to be some link that they're part of your company. And that's the part that I'm not familiar with, because obviously not being a solicitor, but it can definitely be done. Because I said, I know that when I built when I was working for Simmons Homes, and I got them to build my home, and it was just the lady who was the designated contract administrator for the office who actually signed the contract on behalf of Simmons Homes. So it can be done. It's just not my expertise to tell you how that's got to be set up, to be honest with you. But yeah, so don't worry about it, because I know you've got your company, and you'll be able to do it. Just make sure that you get that set up properly. All right, cool guys.
Yeah,
So I'll email this over to everybody. You can have a read it through this stuff here. It's just a bit of, I suppose, your information. What I thought we'd do from there is, let me bring up these questions. I'm just going to make sure that I've got the right one up. Give me a second. So to get my voice a little bit of rest, and you guys can actually go on and do this. So yeah, if you have actually done this module before, other than what I've just explained, is probably not going to be too new to you. So by all means, if you go, yeah, hey Adam, I'm all good with that, not going to be offended if you log off, because a lot of guys actually just do this course through the online session. They actually haven't done it face to face. So what I thought we'd do is just basically go through, not that one, is go through this other one, and you guys can basically do this. We'll probably might take us an hour or something, and what we might do is say do 10 questions, go through the answers, and then basically go through the next 10. So there's not so much silence there, and then the guys who finished a little bit early basically aren't waiting there for half an hour for everybody else to basically catch up. So what I thought we'd do is maybe if we go through to say question 10. And then from there, we'll basically, this when you're done, just type in the box, hey Adam, I'm done. And then basically we'll go through the answers, make sure everyone understood them, knew where to find them. So the only one that I will basically just try and steer you in the right direction with, question number 7, guys. Some of this stuff, when you're probably starting really at number 5, when it says according to the major domestic building contract, a difference between a prime cost item and a provisional sum. So it actually says according to the major domestic building contract. So some of this stuff is going to be found in your master builder's contract in there. So look in there as well as looking in your contract act and your contract regulations. And if you see anything abbreviated to MDBC, that stands for Major Domestic Building Contract. So a lot of people look and go, geez, what's MDBC? And then, because we'll only go to number 10, and in number 9, it actually says under the Building Act 1993, the mandatory stages of inspections are, and I'm pretty sure it's actually in the regs, guys. So if you have a look in the Building Act and you go, geez, I can't find that, I'm pretty sure number 9 actually comes out of the regulations. So let's go through and do question number 10. 1 through 10. And once you've done it, type in the box. We'll go through it, show you the answers, and if you didn't get it, we'll talk about where it was, and if you want to tab it and mark it, then we can go on from there. But yeah, have a crack for the next 10 minutes, and once you're done, basically just type and we'll go through them. And I might just chuck this on mute for a second too, guys. A bit of feedback coming through. Okay, Valavan, I'm not too sure why it's under Module 5, mate. Just give me a look. Oh, sorry, it is under Module 5. I don't know why yours is called Business Management. Mine's called, sorry, got the tab taken out because I was looking at it. Yeah, so Module 5 should say business, on your tab, should say Business Management Multiple Choice and Building Works Management Multiple Choice. There's actually 2 multiple choices in here. So we'll do this one first, the Building Works one, and then once we've done this, we'll go through the business one. So yeah, there should be another set of basically questions in there. So I'll show you the first question, guys. So hopefully that one there should be the first one that you're seeing. Nope. Have you got basically that in your folder? I'm just wondering if it's in the wrong slot, Valavan. Because if not, I can probably email something over to you. Oh yeah, so Michael, you want to hand me? Oh, I think so, mate. I haven't checked. I've just got a little note on here because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, have a look in the regs. I'm pretty sure that in my book anyway, the question says under the Building Act 1993, what are the mandatory stages? But I'm pretty sure that's actually in the regulations. So let me just check my regulations for you, mate. Yeah, it's definitely in the regulations. So a lot of people, because the question says in the Building Act, they look in the Building Act and they can't find it. But no, definitely in the regulations. How'd you go, Valavan? Are you able to find that in your folder, mate?
Right.
Sorry, mate, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah,
looks like I have only one part, which is the Module 5 Business Management Multiple Choice Questions. I don't have the second part here.
Okay, so you don't have these questions that I've got on my screen under the Domestic Building Contract Act? No. Okay.
No.
Okay, what I'll do...
I can go with the slide. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
I can go with your slides and the questions on the slides anyway, so I can.
Yeah, only because it just gives you the answer. Like, it doesn't bother me. I just didn't want you to not be able to basically find them. What I can do, I'll email this over to you, and whilst it'll have the answer there, at least you can see it and basically participate and see if you could find that answer if you knew it. So what I'll do, I'll email this over to you now. I don't actually have it in a question form. I've only got it in the PowerPoint, unfortunately.
Okay.
Right, so I'll just close this because I won't be able to email it while it's open. So I'll just close it and I'll email it over to you, and then I'll bring it back up.
Thanks.
All right, so it's not that one there, so just bear with me a second. And did you get that other email I just sent through with the link for...
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Just okay.
And 1 second, Michael, I'll just email this over to Valavan and I'll have a look at that for you, mate. I just checked who's on mute again for a second, guys, with a bit of feedback. So, yeah, if you're talking to me, I won't be able to hear you. Just ask me to take you off mute. So, under question 9, this is from Michael. Yeah. It's question 9. Give me a second. I just got to find out which one question 9 is. Yeah, okay. Okay, so what I've done, mate, yes, it is. That's exactly right. It is, and it's sort of funny because from memory, that question basically is worded a little bit differently to how they're written in the regulations. Because I think it says pre-slab, frame, and final, whereas this obviously talks a little bit different. It says, prior to placing your footing, prior to pouring an in situ reinforced concrete member, completion of framework, and then the final upon the completion. So, yeah, they do word it a little bit differently, but you're on the right spot there, mate. All right, guys, don't forget to tell me when you get up to question 10, because, yeah, I don't want you guys sitting there going, geez, Adam, what are you doing? And then I'm waiting for you guys thinking you're still going. So once you're done, let me know, and then we'll basically cover them off and make sure we all understand where they were. Thanks, Michael. I'll just take you off mute for a second. So, with Tom, you've done to 40 already, mate. You're a gun. That's all right, mate. That's no worries at all. It's just that some of the guys, yeah, if I was doing this in a face-to-face scenario, I'd normally just go, okay, let's go ahead and do it. But just because obviously when I can't see everybody, I don't want anyone struggling and going, geez, I can't figure this one here out. So if you've done up to 40, mate, well done. So with the guys in sale, how did you do the course with Steve? Did you do like the whole lot, like the whole 12 weeks, and you've done all the units or not?
Yeah, fairly. Good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you did all the technical stuff as well, like drawing the subfloors and the retaining walls and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So have you guys put your applications in yet?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you're just using this as a bit of a refresher to keep sort of fresh in your head when, like, until you go in?
Yeah, we're just here. I'm more here just to keep on the pulse with it and just get a different perspective from another trainer, sort of thing, really too.
Cool, mate. Yeah, and that's another thing. What we'll do too, like as I get sort of updates, when the guys start going through, or when they start going through, they're going through all the time. But as soon as we get, some word from some of our clients to say, hey, listen, this is what I was asked, mate, we'll straight away, I just pass it on to the guys as well. So by doing this, you'll stay up to date, basically with the stuff that's going through. So did you guys get the copy of? Did Steve give you a copy of the roof outline? Did you guys get a copy of that?
No, we done one with Steve, but whether it was the same one or not, I don't know.
Okay, yeah, Tom's just saying that he got it. So yeah, from memory, like actually I'll bring it up on the screen, and you guys tell me if you have seen it or not. 1 second. Yeah, so it would have looked like that, a bit smaller, something like that, and you guys would have drawn in, your hips and basically where the ridge went through and your valley and how that all connected up. Yeah, that's it. Cool. No, that's all right. Cool. Yeah, you're obviously up to date with the latest stuff that's gone through then. But as I said, that would have been something that I think Ben out of this group was the first one who actually had told me about it. And then, yeah, about a week later, they'd gone to this trust company and got them to draw it up for us. And so, yeah, when anything new like that comes through, yeah, definitely we'll basically, I'll throw it over your way. Yeah, Tom's saying it's a brain boil. I was the same I remember when Ben sent it to me and it didn't have any measurements on it either, which made it a bit tougher, and something was, pitch roof was something I'd actually done a lot of, and I looked at it and went, shit, how does that work? Because I'd never done with three, like I call this, we always had sort of just a two, and you call that like a major span, and then your minor span, because obviously one was bigger than the other, but I'd never done one with three different spans, and I thought, shit, how is that gonna work out? But yeah, and one of the guys I was training in a face-to-face class, he was actually a draftsman, and I threw it to him first and said, mate, this is what I've drawn. Can you tell me how accurate I am? And even him being a drafter, he had to sit there for a fair while and figure out and go, well, I think that's how I'd do it. So, yeah, it's a bit of a brain buster. But, yeah, so stuff like that, mate, we'll send over. And also, too, when it comes time for your interview, by all means, like definitely keep in contact, because you might find, in 3 weeks, oh, yeah, look, I don't need to do that unit. And you might just drop in and out on the ones you want to do. But definitely stay in touch. And when you find out that you're going for an interview, if you let me know, and I'll pass on one of the guys' phone numbers who's recently been through, and they're always happy to take a call and say, yeah, mate, this is what I was asked. And the last guy I did that for actually found it really beneficial. because he knew who his interviewer was. He was having a guy called Rob Welsh, and when he rang the other student who'd gone through, and he said, look, he actually asked me a little bit on the angle of repose, and that's something that I teach a bit on when we do retaining walls. I've got some other documentation from a Cert 4 class I do, which is pretty good, and yeah, he was something he wasn't didn't know much about, so he just rang me up and said, hey Adam, you got any stuff on the angle of repose? And I sent it over to him, and he read it, and yeah, fair enough. The next day, the guy asked him a bit on the angle of repose, and he was able to answer it. And he said, you know, without that, he would have been a bit stuck. So yeah, we'll always do that for you as well. So definitely keep me in the loop, and any information you need, yeah, basically I'll send it over. Yeah, Michael's just that they never told me who his interviewer was. Yeah, it is, Michael, to be honest with you. I've been told that they're actually not telling people who the interviewers are anymore, because one or two of them in there have got a bit of a reputation for being a hard ass, and so what people would do, they'd found out who their interviewer was, and then they would cancel and say, oh, listen, I'm actually not available, and then hope to get a different one the next time they went in, and so that's why they stopped telling people. But what some of the guys have actually been doing is ringing up and saying, oh, listen, I just want to check the time for my interviewer, and just sort of play a bit dumb and say, oh, listen, actually, I actually forgot who it was, or the phone dropped out when they told me who it was. They can tell me who it's with, and sort of played a bit dumb. And then sometimes, yeah, they go, okay, it's actually with Rob Welsh, or it's with Simon Rowe. So yeah, one of the guys who's going in 2 weeks' time that I train in a face-to-face class, he actually rang them and said, oh, who's it with? And she said, oh, sorry, I can't tell you. So yeah, it's up to you. You can always ring up and try and find out. But at the end of the day, you know, there's no reason why you guys basically shouldn't be getting through, because you know, like out of all the guys that I've trained and gone through in the last probably 3 months, yeah, they've all passed everything, whether it was their interview or whether it was yeah, just a multiple choice. And that's not saying that I'm an awesome trainer. It just goes to show that our curriculum's spot on. So if you're understanding our curriculum, yeah, we're all sort of teaching the same stuff, maybe a little bit differently. But if you can understand the curriculum, mate, there's no reason why you shouldn't get your license. All right, so are we happy to go through these first 10 guys? I think there's a few that have, once you guys type in it on my box and it tells me, you know, what you have done, I sort of lose the last couple of questions. So I think by the looks of it, everyone's done the first 10, except for Tom, who's done all 40. So what we'll do, we'll basically go through the first 10, make sure you understand them, and if you knew that was the answer but couldn't find it in your book or didn't know where to find it, then I can basically tell you where that is. So we'll go with question 1. What I'll do, guys, I'll put this into PowerPoint mode. It'll make it a little bit bigger for us. Oh, there you go, and the answer's under either. So it just says under the Domestic Building Contract Act, the maximum deposit the builder can claim on a project under $20,000 is basically 10%. So just remember, under 20 is 10, over 20 is 5%. So the next one here, the hierarchy of building control legislation in Victoria. So it's basically B, the Act and the regulations, and the Building Code of Australia. So the way that I remember this, if you look in your folder, you would have been given a legislation revision guide at the very beginning, and the way that I remember it is an acronym called ARCS, which is Act at the top, the regulations, basically your code, as in the building code, and then your standards. So that's how I remember what it is. So just remember ARCS, Act, regulations, code, and then standards, and that'll give you basically the hierarchy of control of actually, you know, what's in the top and how it flows down. So number 3, and if I'm going too quick and you've got any of these wrong, just say, hey Adam, can you pause there and explain where that came from? And I'll do that. So each one of the following statements is basically incorrect. Is A, the Domestic Building Contract 1995 controls the regulation and behaviour of all registered building practitioners. Well, no, because it's only got to do with the contracts. So it doesn't actually have, you know, the behaviour of our practitioners. That's why that one's wrong. And you might see when you do this stuff in multiple choice that some of them, the answers sound, you know, pretty similar. So you just sort of got to read the fine print on some of them and make sure you understand it. The thing I find when guys do these multiple choice, that a lot of the time they see the first answer and go, yep, that's it. And then they click it and it's wrong because it's probably 80% right, but you need to sort of get in the habit of reading all 4 answers. I'm just going to mute that again for a second, guys. So if you need to talk, just ask me and I'll take you off. So number 4, identify the correct statement in relation to the cooling off period. So basically it's B. The owner cannot withdraw from the contract based on the cooling off period if the owner has received independent legal advice from a solicitor before entering the contract. So that's actually in our Contract Act, guys. So if you don't know where that is, 1 second, I'll pull out my Contract Act and you can actually highlight it if you haven't got it. So let me find it off here. So I've got a tab on the side of my book basically called cooling off period, and it's on mine. It's on page number 31. So it's just above section 35, and it says the building owner, this is when it's talking about they can't pull out, and it basically says what it says there, can't withdraw if they've been given basically legal advice from a solicitor, or they're saying here a legal practitioner, or legal, the meaning of a legal practitioner. So that's why that one there is B. So the next one, according to the major domestic building contract, the difference between a prime cost item and a provisional sum is A. So the way that I always remember it, guys, is prime cost is really just the item itself, and a provisional sum normally has got some sort of labour attached to it. That's the way that I remember them. So the example, if you've been doing this course with me for a while, you'll go, geez, Adam, give us another example. But the one that I always relate it to is tiling, because as you know, the type of tile that we're going to choose can actually, the labour portion on that can change. So a lot of people go, hang on, well, a tile, you just go and choose whether it's a $20 a metre tile or a $50 a metre tile down at National Tiles. But as you know, depending on what tile we lay, then the labour portion can change, and that's where we do that as a provisional sum. So in regard to liquidated damages, basically answers D. It means a pre-agreed amount stated in the contract payable by the owner or the builder should the construction period exceed the stipulated time frame in the contract. So just be aware that we can actually enforce liquidated damages on our client. So a lot of the times we're thinking, geez, I need to be finished by this date, or I've got in the contract that it's, you know, $500 a week I've got to pay that owner because he's then going to be renting a house. But if they make the contract basically go past its date, then we can enforce liquidated damages on them as long as it's in the contract, because it might be actually holding us up on another job, and therefore it's putting that next contract of ours in basically danger of not being finished on time because we can't get off this current job, and therefore, you know, we might have liquidated damages with something else, and we then have that stipulated in the contract, so we can enforce that as well. It's not a one-way street. Number 7, basically, what is the one correct answer in relation to the builder's rights to terminate a major domestic building contract? So it just says here that we can serve notice of intention to terminate the contract if the owner refuses or persistently neglects to comply with the contract, including failing to provide the builder with information requested by the builder in relation to prime costs and provisional sums. So that could be holding up our, you know, if we're getting to the stage, hey, I need you to go and choose your tiles, I need you to choose your bath, basically if that doesn't happen, well then, you know, they're basically in breach of their contract because we need that information to then actually finish that build. We can't just go and choose one for them. Okay, so this one here is 5% because we worked out that if it was under 20,000 that it was 10%, so this one's 5% for over 20,000. This is the one too that's worded a little bit differently. I don't like the way this is worded, and you'll see that that's why it's not worded the same way in our building regulations. So sometimes too, when you see something here that you don't like the way that it's worded, quite often that's because of the feedback we've been given from the students of the questions that they've gotten. So the way that I would interpret this, when they say pre-slab, I would presume maybe they're coming and checking your footings, and then the slab is then they're actually coming and then checking, okay, your steel in your slab because you're about to pour the slab, and then obviously your frame and your final. But you can't go too wrong. If you've basically got those highlighted in your building regulations, and from what one of the guys asked me for, I think it might have been Michael, if it wasn't, sorry Michael, but I've just got it highlighted as inspection stages, and it's the beginning of part 9 in your building regulations on page 116, and so yeah, that's where that one there comes from. If you want to tab it, and I've just got it highlighted as inspection stages, or not highlighted, tabbed as inspection stages. And then number 10, so circle the one correct item that are not required to be included in the application for a building permit. It's actually D, so the actual contract itself. So the major domestic building contract doesn't actually have to be in there, but when you read these other ones, they do. And if we were to look in our building regulations, Let me have a look in the building regulator. Maybe it's in the Act. Give me a second, I'll just find it for you. Oh, my tabs are bloody folded over. It was in the building regulations. So in basically on page 24, and it talks about the application for permit to construct a building. So if you're wondering where that comes from, guys, page 24 in your building regulations. And if you've got a different building regulations, like some of us do have, some have got older ones than others, it's actually on the beginning of part 3, and it's 302, and it outlines it, even what to the outlines even to the detail of what scale the plans need to be as well. So I'm pretty sure if you've done up to the first couple of weeks with me or one of the other trainings, you've probably got that tabbed anyway. Right, so what we might do, guys, what's the time? We might go on and do the next 10, and then I'll see, sorry, I'll just see what the time is, because I'm mindful the guys like their break. Yeah, why don't we go through to 7:30? So we'll basically go through to 7:30, and we'll have our normal 15-minute break. And yeah, if you get through those answers, definitely let me know, and we'll cover the answers off before we go. And if we don't get them done in the 15 minutes, we'll cover them off afterwards. So yeah, have a crack for the next 15, and just let me know when you're done question 10 through to question 20. And just when you do, guys, when you actually go to question 12, you'll see there that it's worded a little bit differently. If you open up the purpose of the OH&S Act, it actually won't be worded exactly the same as what it is in there, and that's just from our feedback from yeah, that's fine, Valavan. So basically, when you open up your OH&S Act, when it says what is the purpose, it won't match any of those answers. So that's one of those ones I've been given feedback from the guys who have gone through, and just read through those answers and see which one you think suits what the purpose of the Act is. Yeah, and with your one too, Valavan, that's fine. Like, I know I only sent you the one with the answers in it, but if you wanted to maybe read through them and make sure that you understood where they all came from, and if you've got any questions on why that was the answer, then yeah, just let me know, mate, and I'll basically talk. I'll go through them anyway when we do it as a group. But yeah, if you've got any in the meantime you want to sort of nut out because you can't find it, let me know and I'll steer you in the right direction. Cool, the tab for question 4, mate. Bear with me a second. I'll find that for you, Tom. Yeah, so it's in the Domestic Building Contract Act, and basically it starts on page number 29, and it says on page 29 it says cooling off period after signing a contract. And I've highlighted the first part where it says a building owner may end a contract within 5 days without penalty. And then as you basically scroll over, there's a few more things where it talks about. But the one in relating to question 4 is actually on the top of page 31. That's if you've got the same version of mine. And it says the building owner received independent advice from an Australian legal practitioner within the meaning of a legal profession in the Act of 2004 concerning the contract before entering into the contract. So this is basically talking about when they can't withdraw. So over on page number 30, that's where it starts to talk about when they can't withdraw. So on page 30 at point 4, it says a building owner cannot withdraw from a contract under this section if, and that was one of the reasons, if they've got independent legal advice. Or the first example they give, 4A, is if the building owner and the builder have previously entered into a major domestic building contract that is substantially the same terms for carrying out of work in relation to the same home or land. So they're the two that I've got highlighted. That basically tells you that they can't withdraw after they've signed it, even if it's within 5 days under those two reasons. There you go. There's one thing you learned from me you didn't learn from Steve. I just got yourself mute too, guys. If you Yeah, fine. There's you want to talk. This looks like the feedback sound coming through is all stopped. I just chucked it on mute for a second again, guys. Cool. Thanks, Michael. A couple more minutes and then it looks like the other guys are probably done as well. All right, guys, I think everybody's done. If you're not, just type in the box, hey Adam, cover a couple more minutes, just because where my box where I see when you type to me, I can only sort of see about the last 4 or 5 things typed in there. So I think everybody's done. So I said, if you're not, just say, hey Adam, give me another 5, and if not, we'll probably go through these ones and then have a bit of a break. No, it looks like we're all good. Okay, so it says circle the correct statement in regard to what items are considered part of the overall building contract. Oh, so B, the signed contract, the stamp plans, the specifications, and the engineering plans. And yeah, so if you need any basically clarity on these, guys, basically just let me know. And so I just don't want to spend all night reading it to you if you already understand it. But if for some reason you go, hey, listen, why is it not the major domestic building contract only? Let me know and I'll explain why. The main purpose of the OH&S Act, so this is the one I said was going to be worded differently, and it's basically to ensure that all workers on a construction site are provided with the highest level of safety in the workplace and that all visitors to the site are safe while on site. So the next one, basically the correct statement in relation to the differences between the Act, or the Building Act, and the building regulations. So C, the Act is superior. So remember that acronym I spoke about, the ARCS, ARCS, so we know ACTS at the top. So the Act is superior to the regulations, which main purpose is to administer the Act and put detail into the day operation of the Act. The regulations can easily be changed, whereas the Act cannot. And commonly known, so this is one we covered when I brought up that stuff from the VBA before, as our $5,000 and $16 rules. Basically, what do those two amounts relate to? Is B. So domestic building work exceeding $5,000 usually requires the use of a major domestic building contract and must also include homeowner's warranty insurance if that contract exceeds $16,000. The main purpose of the Building Construction Industry Security Payment Act. So D, assists subbies to be paid by principal contractors who tell the subbies they will get paid when the principal contractor has been paid. So just remember, guys, at the end of the day, your basically work and contract is with the builder. It's got nothing to do with what that builder's getting from the client. So yeah, that's basically what that one's all about. And that's, we've spoken about it before, how you should have on your invoices these days when you're invoicing, that this invoice is basically made, I forget how it's worded, but it's in our, basically in our acts there, where it talks about the Building and Security Payment Act, just stating that this invoice is made basically under that act, and that way there you're basically covered. It says from memory, it must state that this payment of work is made in conjunction with this act or something like that. But we've got it tabbed, and if not, let me know and I'll find the page where it talks about it for you. Circle this is our homeowner's warranty insurance. So which one of these is actually correct? So it's B, an owner builder, and this is just basically some mathematics, guys. So it says an owner builder will require homeowner's warranty insurance for 4.5 years if the building is sold 2 years after the construction process is complete. So that's just basically doing our mathematics really and working out, okay, well, if this basically insurance goes for this long, yeah, I'll get that one for you, Valavan, in a second. Basically just working out that, as I spoke about before, if someone does something under homeowner's warranty, because they don't have homeowner's warranty insurance, they've got to pay that remaining amount of time out into a policy so that it covers the new person who buys it. So I'll cover that one at the break, Valavan. I'll just go through these and then I'll find it, mate. So the differences between an occupancy permit and a certificate of final inspection. So basically, A, the occupancy permit is granted by a building inspector when a new home is effectively complete and ready to be occupied by the owner, whereas basically the certificate of final inspection relates to the completion of a renovation. So the reason why that is, guys, because if you're doing a renovation, that house, whether it's 10 years old, 20 years old, basically has already got an occupancy permit granted to it so that people can move in the first time. So they don't grant a second occupancy permit. They just obviously then grant a basically a certificate of final inspection to say the work's done. Number 18, single trades that are exempt from registration include, and this will be in one of the documents that I'll send over later on. So yeah, if you're doing flagpole erection, floor and wall tiling, and plastering and painting, you actually don't need to be registered. You've only got to be registered if you're doing more than one of those trades. So if you were just doing basically wall tiling, you don't need to be registered. But if you were doing it where you had to go and obviously fix the plasterboard first and then put the wall tiling on it, you need to be registered because you're doing 2 trades. And that's in those documents that I'll send over to you either sometime tonight or at the end of the presentation. So, correct statement in relation to the variations within a major domestic building contract. So variations to a contract must be in writing to be enforceable. So just remember that at the end of the day, we want everything in writing, or otherwise it's just, you know, our word against theirs. If it's in writing, there's really no misunderstanding. And then number 20, so if the construction of a renovation, construction or renovation of a home is likely to exceed 500 grand, but it is difficult for the builder to provide an estimate, the parties are permitted to enter into a cost plus contract. So that one there, guys, is in, basically there is stuff about cost plus in our Contract Act and in our contract regulations. So if you actually haven't got that tabbed, let me know, and I've got it here in front of me somewhere, and I'll be able to find the page, and actually I'll tell you now that I've got it. So basically it's in the regs. That's a little white book if you got it from us, and it's actually on page number 6, and it says contracts for work that is reasonably estimated will cost $5,000 or more, then a cost plus contract can be allowed into that, be entered into. So that's where that one there is. So that's page 6. So what we'll do, guys, let's go and have a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 7:45, and we'll go on with the rest of this slide. If you've got any questions in the meantime, let me know, and I'll have a look at that one for you, Valavan, and let you know when I come back. All right, guys, welcome back. Hopefully, yeah, you're all fed, and if you smoke, hopefully you had your ciggy. Basically, what we'll do, guys, there's only 12 to go in this one, so we'll go through and do them. It'll probably only take us, another 10 minutes, and then basically I'll go through the answers again. And then after that, I find we'll do the next set of questions as well. But I find, there's a lot of stuff in there that basically can't be referenced, I suppose. So there's not too much that I can sort of add to that. Like I'll go through it, but there'll be nothing to tab and say, hey, let's make sure we tab this. But I'll still go through it and cover it off and make sure that we all know where those answers are. But you guys got the answers in the back anyway. But yeah, so let's do question 20 to 32. And then after that, we'll go on to something a little bit different. So once you're done, guys, it should only take 10 minutes. And then, yeah, we'll go through and basically go through the answers. And you're there, are you there, are you, Valavan? Yeah, you're there, cool. So what we'll do, mate, that question you asked me, basically what it is, it's on, where's my book? Here it is. It's on the Building Construction Industry Security Payment Act. So if you got that in front of you, mate, open up to page 24. I just don't think I've got a soft copy of this one to be able to show you. I'll see if I have, actually. If I have, I'll put it up on the screen while the other guys are answering their questions. Oh, I have got it, mate. So give me a second. I'll put it up on the screen and I'll show you the section that they're talking about. All right. Okay, so this is an older version, Valavan. So it will look a little bit different to what's in yours, but it's pretty much the same. So this is talking about basically as what we want to be putting on our invoices to make sure we're getting paid. So it talks about here that a person who's entitled to a progress payment claim under a construction contract, so that would become the claimant, and it talks about what we need to have written on our payment claim. So in the latest edition, there's actually, when it talks about here, these 3 points, A, B, and C, there's actually 4. So it just says on the new one that I've got here in front of me, the difference is the first one says must be in the relevant prescribed form. So basically, however we've agreed, it's got to probably be written, I suppose, and then must contain the prescribed information. And then it says, so it's similar to what this is here, but then it basically just worded a little bit differently. It must identify the construction work or the related goods and services to which the progress payment relates, and it must indicate the amount of the progress payment and the claimant claims to be due. And then the last point is the same. It says it must state that it's under this act. So you'd write on there, this payment claim is made under the Building Construction Industry Security Payment Act 2002. And what that basically does is it's supposedly meant to, well, not supposedly, it does make it easier for us to claim our money. So that then, rather than someone goes, oh, mate, will take me to court if you want to get your money, then this outlines, well, these are the rules of which this work's been done. And if you read on further then in this act, it talks about then how you actually go about claiming that money. So, yeah, basically the bottom line is you just want to make sure that you're right on the bottom of your invoice that, that this payment is made under the Security of Payment Act or the Building Construction Industry Security of Payment Act 2002. And then if you have any issues, it's a much easier claim process to basically get paid. All right, guys, we might go through those questions. Looks like most people have typed in that they've done them. Same thing again, if you still want a few more minutes, just type in there, hey Adam, give me a couple more. But I think that looks like everyone's done. But no hassle if you need a few more minutes. And that we're good to go. All right, so let's go through these. All right, so 21. So in regard to terminating the services of the building surveyor, circle the correct statement. So the answer is B, a building surveyor's services cannot be terminated without the agreement of the building commission. So that's actually in our Building Act as well. So I don't know if you guys want to actually tab that if you find that a bit hard to find. But if you want to do it, it's actually on the Building Act in mine on page 66. And if it's not on page 66 in yours, it's under clause 81. And it's called termination of appointment. So if you knew the answer but didn't know where to tab it, I said page 66, section 81, and it's termination of appointment. So that talks about there, you know, what you've got to do if you basically saying you can't actually terminate the surveyor without the written consent of the authority. All right, so number 22, according to the Major Domestic Building Contract, the stated method of dispute resolution is escalating the dispute to, basically, here it is here, VCAT. So if you don't know what VCAT stands for, guys, Victorian Civil and Administration Tribunal, that's basically where we go if it can't be resolved. So licensed lending, this is one of the things I obviously showed you guys before. So the answer to that is A, a registered building practitioner allows a building permit to be issued in his or her name, takes no part in the construction and supervision of the project, but still charges a project management fee. So penalties that the Building Practitioners Board can impose on registered building practitioners. So it's fines, or it's B, reprimands, fines, license suspension and cancellation. So if you're just wondering too, it's actually written in the Act where it talks about, it's on page 312. Now, not probably anything that you're going to be asked in an interview, but as Greg and I know, we like to go, okay, if that's the answer, then why is it the answer? And you'll notice that when you look in the Act, it starts to talk, like it'll say this many penalty points. And for those guys who I haven't explained this to before, basically a penalty point from memory was like $151.67. So for some of these things where we see, 500 penalty points, times 500 by that, and you get close to pretty close to $80,000. So that's what one penalty unit is. But when we look in our Act, you'll see there where it talks about, obviously we can get fines, we can obviously get like a reprimand, and then it also talks on that page 312 about if you're caught basically signing a contract and you're not registered, that basically they can stop you from getting licensed for up to 3 years. So I'll just find that section and I'll find it to you. So nothing that you're probably going to be asked in your interview, but yeah, I just came across that one day when I was looking for something else. So it says additional penalties for unregistered builders carrying out of domestic building work. If a court finds an unregistered builder guilty of carrying out domestic building work in contravention of this Act, the court may, in addition to any penalty for that offence, direct the builder to be ineligible for registration for basically no more than 3 years. So 3 years is a maximum. So if you got caught signing a contract, there was a thing I read on the VBA a couple of months back where some guy basically did a job, he wasn't registered, and it was all going smooth. He probably does it a lot. And then there was an issue with the client. They went to VCAT and then basically found out that he wasn't registered. So he got this, I think it was about a $17,000 fine. And then on top of that is okay, and also you can't be registered now for the next 3 years. So that's yeah, so that's in the Building Act if you're wondering, where that sort of stuff comes from. All right, so number 25 is is B. So circle the correct answer. Basically, they'll be found in volume 2 of the National Construction Code. And that's probably something, guys, that we don't cover a whole lot in this course. And if you're just not too sure, I might just take the second and show you guys. Yeah, because if you're doing a domestic license, we're dealing with basically Class 1 and Class 10 buildings. But if you're not too sure, if you haven't done a Certificate 4 or a diploma, you might not actually be aware of what the classes actually are. So when you look in your Volume 2 of your building code, it only actually gives you basically what a Class 1 and Class 10 are. And obviously those Class 1s and 10s are broken down into A's and B's and C's and so on. But this one here, guys, for those of you who do commercial work, or you might have done a diploma, this is actually, it's got here, some people call this the NCC. I actually call it the BCA. You know, horses, of course, whatever you want to call it. But I just call it the BCA because it's the Building Code of Australia. In my humble opinion, the NCC is actually the whole series of books, whereas this is the Building Code of Australia Volume 1. So that's the way that I basically determine it, but you know, however you makes sense to you. And when you come in here, I'll make this fractionally bigger so you guys can see it. This one here talks about classifications of buildings and structures. So this has got all the classes through to 1 to 10. So if you're wondering what the other classes of buildings are, see basically 1A and 1B are actually in the ones that you guys would be using. But this then also starts to talk about a Class 2 is a building containing 2 or more sole occupancy units, each being a separate dwelling. And your 3 basically is a residential building other than a 1 or 2, which is a common place of long-term transient living for a number of unrelated people, and basically includes our boarding houses, a residential part of a motel, the residential part of a school, accommodation for the aged or children or people with disabilities, and so on. Then it goes on to here, you know, 5 is an office building used for professional or commercial purposes. Basically, a 6 is a shop or other building for the sale of goods. Basically, and then 7 is basically a car park or something for the storage or display of goods. 8 is a laboratory. Then you've got your 9 broken into a few classes: healthcare buildings, assembly buildings and schools, aged care buildings. And then here's a 10, which we actually see in our Volume 2, which is obviously our non-habitable buildings as private garages, our swimming pools, and then our private bushfire shelters. So if you're not aware, guys, with these actual books, I know you guys probably paid to get them off us. You can actually get them basically online. The place you want to, since we might have, I don't want to bore you to death, but we've probably got a spare few minutes up our sleeves tonight, so I might actually show you this. Bear with me a second. It's actually from the Australian Buildings Code Board. So what used to happen up until about a year or two ago, you had to actually buy these books, and they're about $200 each, and they bought out a new one every year. So now what they've done is made them actually free online, which makes a lot of sense because then people got access to it, because probably most of us had actually never seen the building code until we'd done this course, and it's what regulates our whole industry. So if you were to go to this website, the Australian Building Codes Board, basically this is where you can just register, and our NCCs are basically on here. So you come in here and you can download basically all these books here. So you've got Volume 1, which is one I showed you, Volume 2 and Volume 3. Basically this one here is pretty good. It's the guide, and it sort of shows you how to use it and how it all sort of came about. And then, to be honest, I've never used this one here. Performance requirements. It's got to do, a performance requirement is basically how things have to perform to be compliant with our building industry, really. And you can download any of these for free. And I think the beauty of actually having them, if you're not familiar, especially if you start using this one here, because this is set out totally different to how the other one is. You'd notice in the one we're using through the course that you know, it's broken down into Section 1, Section 2, and then Section 3 is really the only section we use, and it's got acceptable construction in there, and that's then broken into, you know, our footings, into our framing and so on. And whereas this has got it where there's no Section 3, anything to do with basically fire resistance is all in this part here. And then anything to do with access and egress, so access is how you get in, egress is how you get out, has got to do with this. So it's all contained in the one section. And what you would get, and I don't want to feel like I'm going off on a tangent, but I just think some of you guys probably do commercial, and I think this has got 10 spare minutes, you may as well talk about it. But things like in here, when you look at health and amenities, you can actually work out how many toilets that you actually need. So if we were to have a look at something like here, sanitary and other facilities, if I click on there, and that's the beauty of the PDF too, you can just click on it and it takes you straight there. This is downloaded straight from basically the website. So let me scroll down. Sorry if I'm making you giddy. So this here talks about in each of those class of buildings what it needs to be. So if this is a class 3 residential aged care building, for each building or group of buildings, a shower, so it has to contain a shower, a closet pan and a wash basin for 8 residents, or part there of whom private facilities are not provided, and a suitable bath for each 30 residents. So if there's 30 people living there, there's got to be one bath. And then when we scroll down a little bit more, there's actually a table that, like this one here, you guys can actually work out. If you were, say, you went into some form of commercial and you want to do a fit out, or someone asked you to do the fit out, you would be able to determine basically what facilities need you to put in there. So this is for basically classes 3, 5, 6 and 9, basically other than schools. So if you've got male employees there, for a closet pan, basically for 1 to 20 people who are going to be there, you need one. And then for every 20 after that, you need an extra one. Then how many urinals you need and how many wash basins. So this is what you can actually use to then determine, if you had to, basically what was going to be compliant, to basically make sure you had the right amount of, hand basins and toilets and so on, depending on what your class of building was. And then the other little quick thing I'll show you, which I think is worth noting, is that in commercial construction, there's a lot to do with fire resistance. And so if you're wondering, when you come to fire resistance, sorry, I've gone past it, have I? Fire resistance here. Basically in commercial construction, there's basically 3 types of fire resistance. There's A, B and C. And so I'll show you the table how they work it out. So basically A is the highest fire resistance and C is the lowest. So how you would work out is what fire resistance that needs to be is how many stories is it, and then what type of class of building is it. So basically anything that's 1 story, it's still a class C, which is the lowest. And then when you look at class 2, you'll see if it's a 2-story building, if it's a class 2, 3 or 9, then it needs to be type B fire resistance. And if it's any of these classes, it's only type C. And so you'll be looking to go, okay, that's great, Adam. What's type A, what's type C, and what's type B? So as we scroll down, it actually talks about our fire resistance levels. So there's a section here on type A fire resistance. So let me find it. Here we go. So this will be, I'm pretty sure our type A, I'm getting there slowly. Not doing a real good job. You can tell that I actually did this on a whim and didn't actually prepare for this, would have had the page number written down. So here we go, fire resistant construction. So there's a table when I get to it very slowly. Here, so this is basically for anything that's type A fire construction. It actually outlines, for load-bearing walls less than 1 metre, what the fire resistant needs to be. So for 90, 90, 90, if you're not familiar with that, if you look back into basically the definitions, the first part, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but in this blue part says structural adequacy. So basically it's got to be structural adequate for 90 minutes. Then it's got integrity. So basically that's saying, okay, once it actually hits a certain temperature, how long until it actually collapses. So that might be, to do with your plasterboard lining or whatever you've got that's protecting the structural adequacy. And then the last number is our insulation. So how long until those flames actually pass through that plasterboard. And that's what your insulation is. So that's how they work out basically how strong, it's not how strong, how fire resistant our different parts of the building need to be. So for something that's type A, you'll notice these numbers are going to be a lot higher than what they would be on a type B or a type C. So that's what our fire resistance level is. And if you're wondering how you do that, there's actually, we used to use a company, I'll pronounce it wrong, depends where you're from, Knauf, whatever you want to pronounce it, and they've actually got on their system, what they call on their website, a system selector. So if you knew you were going to do something and you wanted to work out what the fire resistance of the wall had to be, you can go onto their website and say, I'm doing a load-bearing wall that's basically less than 3 meters and it needs to be 90, 90, 90, and they will then give you all the different solutions that you can use to achieve that. And I might say, okay, you're going to use a steel track stud with this insulation, this type of insulation, and 2 16 mil fire check, whatever it would be, and that will then give you 90, 90, 90. So that's how they basically relate. So Yeah, so that's something too, guys. We're not just talking back to that PowerPoint. When we're using these BCAs, as I said, there is more than the one, and if you want to get familiar with classes outside of 1 and 10, that's when you can go to that building codes board and basically just download it. So I would email that over to you, but it's that big that I think it's 20 something meg, and my email actually doesn't let me email that over. So by all means, ABCB, Australian Building Codes Board, and you can basically download those for free and have it as a PDF. And I think it's a really handy way the first time, if you're not familiar with how to find stuff in it. Let me bring it back up. If you're trying to find something in here and you go, geez, where am I going to find it? If you haven't got a Mac, I don't use Mac, so I couldn't tell you what you got to press, but on a PC, you go Control F, and this box pops down, and you can type in the word that you're looking for. So if we wanted to find, say, type A construction, because you saw me fluffing around there for a while, I go type A and hit enter. It basically searches the document, and you can see that's highlighted blue, and it shows you the different parts in there that are type A. And that's, I think, the beauty of using a PDF, that, yeah, if you can't actually find something, you basically put the word you're looking for, and it'll find it. All right, so I'll close that down there and get back onto what we're training tonight. So question 26. Basically, the following factors must be present for a building owner in a current domestic building contract to be able to successfully claim the homeowner's warranty insurance. The builder must, and basically this is some guys, and this is another one that I think's worded a little bit differently. I think it might be different in your book, the way it is, but basically they've got to be insolvent, deceased, or disappeared. And when it says or has failed to comply with the tribunal court order. So it's one of those things, that one there obviously in our answers that we've got has answer D, but if you look at those other VBA statements, I don't think it has on there failed to comply with the tribunal court order. But yeah, so obviously I think if he's failed to comply, then he's probably done a runner anyway, and then that would be considered to be disappeared. So yeah, that's the difference between those two there, but don't stress, they won't give you those too closely linked. I think it's just a bit of a trick question, and I don't like it when people put trick questions in there to try and trip you up. So in relation to the $5,000 rule and unregistered builders, so basically B, only registered builders can undertake domestic building work projects valued over $5,000. So under what circumstances can an owner withdraw from a contract after the builder and the owner have signed it? So prior to the cooling off period expiring, or if a special condition has not been met, basically. So that's when the owner can withdraw after they've signed it. So when it says a special condition, that could be something along the lines of they need to get finance, and depending, if you would have done the standard contract we've been doing for a little while, it puts in there, I think, that whoever the client is basically needs to get approval of, you know, $250,000 from the NAB within this time frame, and basically that could be a special condition that's been put in there. All right, so then number 30, what is the legal definition of defective building work? This will be in one of the things I'm going to send you guys over a bit later on, where it actually describes it. So it basically works at a substandard in regards to the building work in which the builder is obliged to rectify to a professional standard. So with that too, we might find it goes into a bit more definition in the handout I'm going to email over, and it basically says if we don't comply with the plans and specifications. So even though it says, you know, this is what the Australian standard says for oh geez, I don't know, for tiling, we might have a higher standard specified on our specifications we have to meet, and obviously we haven't met our obligations, so that's going to be substandard, and then we would need to fix it, and it will explain that in the thing I'm going to send over a little bit later on. So in relation to the builder's implied warranties within the Domestic Building Contracts Act, which is the most correct and accurate statement. So basically the builder must carry out the work in a proper and workmanlike manner and in accordance with the plans, specifications set out in the contract. So that's similar to what I was just talking about before. Select one of these basically which is correct, and it's C. So fall protection is required on a scaffold and or a domestic commercial construction site above 2 meters. So basically we know that basically anything above 2 meters, and if you guys who weren't here last week, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but basically in our OH&S Act, it describes, actually might be our regulations, I think pretty sure it's in the regulations, it describes what high-risk activities are, and high-risk activities, one of them listed is working above 2 meters, and then it also says in those regs that we can't do high-risk activities unless we've completed a safe work method statement. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. So that's why we need basically fall protection, because it's high risk, and we need to limit that risk of us falling down. So it's 2 meters. That'll be something you'll probably get in a multiple choice if you're doing it. So which one of the following, this is the last one, best describes the duty of care and the responsibilities of employees in regard to our OH&S on the building site? And employees have a legal obligation to take reasonable care of their personal health and safety, and the health and safety of those who may be affected by their own acts or omissions on site. So that's out of our regulations. If you need me to show you that page, I can show you the page. But basically on our OH&S, sorry, not our regulations, our OH&S Act it's on, basically talks about employer duties, employee duties, and then also self-employed persons. And that's pretty close word for word what it talks about the obligations of our employees are on site. So whilst it's obviously our job site, they have to basically take reasonable care of their health and other people on site as well and not endanger them. So if you don't need any pages on those guys, I'll quickly flick on to the next part. Now these ones here, so with these guys, I'll quickly go over these because these is just stuff that you're going to find basically from past modules that we've done. So I just normally get the guys to sort of read over them, but I'll quickly go through them. If anything there jumps out at anybody, I'll put a bit of context and explain it to you. But let me turn this into PowerPoint mode so it's just a little bit bigger. So, and my feedback too, guys, from the guys who are going through is that there's not a huge emphasis on the business side of it. You'll probably go in and get a couple of questions, but back 9 months ago when you had to submit a business plan, there was a lot more emphasis on that. But the guys I've spoken to recently, they really just get a couple of what they told me were pretty sort of easy questions, like who would you get to do your tax return, and I forget the answers, but they were pretty simple. It was your accountant and things like that. But anyway, we'll basically go through these. In the building business, what would you describe a building as? And basically it's as an asset. The term target market, basically what does it relate to? So this has sort of got to do, as I said, with that business plan. If you were doing a business plan, your target market is the clientele that you want to basically target to try and get their business so you can build for them. So then SWOT analysis, and when we spoke about this one a couple of weeks ago, guys, I think a SWOT analysis is really handy to do, even if you don't do it, to the formal way that it's done here. I think it's great to work out. I'll show you what the answer is. It's B. It says a visual planning tool comprised of your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. So that's what SWOT stands for: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. And I just think it's good to work out where your strengths are in your business. And I used this a little bit before, so sorry for the guys who heard this story 2 weeks ago, but with Builder Registration, I actually do a little bit of recruiting for them. And I know that my personal strength actually isn't being a salesperson trying to talk people onto the course. If someone rings me and says, hey Adam, I heard you train the course, what's involved, is it worthwhile doing? By all means, I can tell them what it's involved and probably say yep, and they would sign on. But as far as going out and cold calling and working onto sites is something that's not a strength of mine. So I'm moving to Queensland in about 2 months, and we're going to actually set Builders Registration up there. And I just know that for that to be successful, then I would have to basically engage someone to probably do that that marketing and sales side for me. So I think it's worthwhile just, you guys now you're going to be running your own business, go, okay, what am I good at? What am I bad at? And then what are the opportunities in the markets? And then what are the threats to my business? And, just basically, even if you just jot them down in a diary, and then that way, it's easy to work out, okay, well, this is what I can improve on. Because I think a lot of the time, we think too much like tradespeople and not as business people. And it's all about, wow, look at that good job I did there. That looks really great. But at the end of the day, there's so much more to being a builder than, don't get me wrong, it's very important to build a great project. But we need to go, okay, did I estimate that well? Did I, the quantities, did the time frame I allowed, did that work well? How did I go with, managing my subbies? Did I give them enough notice? with my lead times and my windows and all these sort of things, work out what we do well and what we don't. And then try and basically work on those and possibly engage other people to strengthen our business. All right, so which of the following could alert you that a person is most likely an employee? So basically it's A. So just remember, guys, that 80-20 rule is probably something that you're going to be asked in your interview about, asking about, your contractors, how you manage them, and then also, what makes them basically employees as far as entitlements go with your super compared to a contractor. So just remember that 80-20 rule. So which one of the following statements about the accounting process is correct? Yeah, so these ones, I wouldn't worry too much about them, guys. It's hard to remember all these. Basically, the accounting flow is your source documents, your journals, your ledger, your trial balance, profit and loss statements, and balance sheets. So, geez, if that was me doing my multiple choice, I'd go, yeah, okay, well, I'm only going to get 99%, not 100. So, yeah, but by all means, study them. But my feedback is we're not getting questions that in depth about basically accounting. So when using a computer-based accounting system, basically the information for the BAS is mostly accessed from your profit and loss statement. So, and the basic accounting equation states basically that our assets equals our liabilities plus our proprietorship. So same one again, guys. No one I've spoken to recently has got something that in depth with their accounting. And basically what is gross profit? So sales less the cost of direct materials and labour before taking away the overheads. So we did an exercise a few weeks ago where we spoke about the example was I've built these apartments and it cost me I sold them for $850. It cost me $690 to build them, but that hasn't incorporated then basically our overheads and stuff, like our rent on our shed, our phones, any commissions we're giving to sales staff and stuff like that. Being highly geared, basically means having a lot of debt when compared to the amount of equity in the business. So obviously we don't have a lot of, I suppose, spare cash flow is probably a good way to define that. We've got a lot more debt and we're trying to obviously bring that down to, have a bit more money to make it workable for the business if we need it. So to manage the risk of not being paid by customers, which might you do, and this is something that you probably will get in your multiple choice. It's just a matter of reading it and going, okay, well, which one would I do there? And the answer is A. So this is what you wouldn't do. And that's what you've got to be careful of, because you might read this question and a lot of guys look at it and go, sort of read it around the wrong way. So say, what should you not do? And we shouldn't basically stop working if an invoice is 2 days overdue. So we want to do these other ones. Ensure the stage is completed, communicate regularly with the client, and then keep a diary of when progress payments and variations are due and can be claimed. So you look at that and go, yeah, okay, I'm not going to stop work when it's 2 days overdue. So non-current assets, but same again, guys. Not feedback we're getting, the guys getting asked that. So they form part of the business infrastructure such as equipment, tools and motor vehicles. So your current liabilities, so they're items such as, that might be something you might get asked, in an interview, what liabilities would you have in your business? Because depending on sort of your background of running your business, they will ask you some business questions and they might want to say, okay, what are some of your liabilities within your company? And you can say, yep, okay, we've got my bank overdraft, obviously the money owing for the suppliers, for the materials and so on that's been purchased, and also it could be, the subbies that you've got to basically pay off and stuff like that. So you might have to talk about some of your liabilities. So your business plan basically must be reviewed and adjusted. So basically, when do we do that? And the answer is regularly, say 3 monthly. And this is a little bit about, most of you probably don't have a business plan now that it's not compulsory. But even if you don't go to that that extent of doing a business plan, I think it's worthwhile, once you guys start out on your own, basically just have an informal one jotted down in your diary or even in your head and go, well, this is the market that I want to basically tackle. And then, in 3 or 4 months, basically have a look at it and just say, okay, well, this is what I wanted to achieve. How am I going? And if you're not achieving it, sort of go, okay, well, why am I not getting that? Is it the sales people aren't, basically wanting me to do their job? Does that mean I'm going to do more marketing? Or does it might say, okay, well, there's actually not as much room in the market for that I thought there was. Let's try a slightly different avenue and do more high-end, basically renovations and extensions rather than targeting the first home buyer or something like that. So I think it's worth reviewing where you are as a business, because as I said, most of us are so used to being tradespeople. In my experience, we don't spend enough time on our actual business side of it. And that's why you see so many guys who, and I've told this story before, the guys that I did my trade with went to apprenticeship school together, and the ones who were probably the worst tradesmen probably ended up being the best builders because they had that business mind, whereas the guys who were awesome on the tools, a lot of them weren't as successful as the other guys because they didn't have that business where they were constantly trying to review it and actually get better at it. They were more focused on being a tradesman. All right, so your KPIs. So a KPI is a key performance indicator. And what could they be as a builder? So we might work out, okay, what our gross sales are, what our net sales are, then what our gross profit is, the net profit before tax, and then our profit after tax. So basically that's what our KPIs could be. But to be honest with you, you just read those and pick, which you think is the most likely answer. But everyone's going to have different KPIs. So you might have a based on turnover. Yep, this year I'm building 3 houses. The KPI for me next year is I want to build 8. I want to get a site supervisor on and start getting bigger. So you'd have to read which one you think is basically the most likely answer. But as I said, it is a personal thing because my KPIs would be different to yours. If you're in a tight financial position, what should you do? Basically create a cash flow projection and talk to your creditors and financiers about your current position. So a cash flow projection is obviously working out how much money we need to actually basically pay out compared to what's actually coming in, and then we can actually determine to our creditors, listen mate, my progress payment comes, I know I'm late, but my progress payment comes in next month, it's a big stage claim, it's 160 grand, I'll be able to pay you on this date. So that's what we want to be able to do. So we don't want to avoid communicating, which most guys do. When they owe people money, they stop answering their phone. And then also otherwise, borrow as much money to improve your short-time financial position. That's sort of these are last-term resorts. We want to basically get a visual picture of what do I owe, what's coming in, and let's see how we can manage this. The purpose of preparing that cash flow, sort of just what I spoke about there. When we do, we can obviously hopefully be in a favourable position to know the expected incomings and outgoings. What are the advantages of operating as a domestic building business as a sole trader? This is one of I think it was Valavan who asked me this and wanted to know, what was, the benefits of being a company and a sole trader. So in this here, basically the answer they've got here is that it's simple. So it is very simple to be set up as a sole trader. You just basically apply for an ABN and you got it. It's also inexpensive, so it doesn't cost you much. And it's obviously inexpensive in a way too of owning and operating a small business with all the profits going to the owner. So if you're a sole trader, basically everything that comes in through that ABN is actually yours. So that's where it's different where it's a company, or it might be in a trust and there's different people involved in it. So that's when it gets to here, what are the advantages and disadvantages of operating basically a business as a company. So it's C here. So basically a proprietary limited company pays much less tax than any sole trader would, and its directors cannot be sued. So that's there needs to be a lot more in it than just that there, guys. A lot of the reasons why, and so I'm no accountant, so don't set up your company and then say, hey, this is what you told me. But in my experience, the reasons guys go to companies is to try and, I suppose, I don't know if it's limit the risk is the right word, but also almost like protect their assets. So with your house and your car and all these things, that'd be owned by Adam Cant, but my building company might be called, basically AC Constructions. So then basically if something goes wrong, basically that the company doesn't really own anything, and that's why it's under my name as Adam Cant. But then obviously the downside of that is that then with your company, because you don't own anything, if you want to start doing spec homes or something, that's very hard then to get money, because like as we know, when we want to borrow money, the first thing the bank want to know is, well, what do you own in case you fall over? How much equity have you got? So if you're acting as a company and you've got everything that you own in your own name, then that's the other trade-off too. It gets it hard to earn money. But if you're looking at doing basically the company, basically talk to your accountant. Don't just take my 1-minute advice there on why guys do and don't do it. But there are basically benefits of both ways. One of the guys I train in Geelong, he was telling me that he's a company set up, and what he does, he actually then pays himself personally like the minimum wage of about, I think he said like $24,000 a year or something. So he's got it worked out, so it obviously works for him for tax reasons. But same thing again, then he struggled to get any money because his personal income is only $24,000 a year. So yeah, it's talk to your accountant, but there's ways to make it work for you. And some people go, no, I'm better off being a sole trader. All right, so the profit and loss statement, 2 main categories to calculate whether the business made a profit. So basically our revenue minus our expenses. So how much money came in and how much did we pay out, and that's pretty much the quickest way to figure out basically whether they made a profit or loss. So the balance sheet, so same thing again, I'd be surprised if you got asked this, but basically includes basically what 3 items on it. So normally if you did have a balance sheet, you're going to have the assets, the liabilities, and the proprietorship. So double entry accounting, same thing again, probably not something you're going to be asked, but basically what is double entry accounting? So it involves debits and credits which are required in the ledger to balance the various accounts. Now this here, guys, like I know you guys, I actually do my own bookwork, and I don't talk, probably because I'm not an accountant, I don't talk in basically accounting terms like this, but I actually do all this stuff, and you guys probably do as well. If you've got MYOB or Xero or Business Basics or something, you're probably doing this stuff, and if you got asked this in an interview, you'll be able to talk about how you did your accounting. So don't be stressed too much if you don't know the exact, what's double entry accounting. The assessor's probably not going to know that either, to be honest with you. Your ABN, so I'm sure probably most of us have an ABN at the moment. So basically it's an Australian business number, and it's a compulsory requirement for all businesses in Australia. And as we know, we put our invoice, we put our ABN on it. And our financial ratios, so an example of interpreting financial ratios, basically the debt to equity for the business has been calculated as 1 in 3 as a low debt position. Geez, like I said, these I think are way over what you're going to be asked, so don't stress about that one there. A tax input credit, so this is something we covered about 2 weeks ago when we did a little thing on our BAS statements, and basically it's when a business owner registered for GST offsets the amount paid in GST against it collected. So basically they say, okay, this is what I'm claiming this month, I've bought all this timber, so the GST and all that timber, all the bracing, all the nails, the GST was 10%, so therefore this is what I've paid, and I've had this much in progress payments, and we offset one against the other, and that's our input tax credit when we do our BAS statement. So an example of accrual accounting, same thing again. Don't worry about that one there, guys. It's I'll read it. The business recognises income when it issues the invoice and recognises expenses when they receive an invoice from the subcontractor. So that's just another thing about how you're running your books. I'm sure we're all doing that, but we're not calling it accrual accounting. So we'd be able to talk about how we actually did it. And that's what it is as far as when we get in front of that assessor. It's all about being able to talk about our competency. And if you don't use those exact terminology, it doesn't mean you're not competent in doing that aspect of your business. So that one there, a building business would be deemed to be in a solid financial position. If it's trading profitably, has money in the bank, and its bills are up to date. Pretty self-explanatory, that one there. This is one you'll probably get into multiple choice. So the federal government legislation that controls employment relations, Fair Work Act 2009. So that is one you will more than likely get into multiple choice question, guys, if you're doing it. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically where you'd go if you've got employees, and where you go and find out, what the award rate is, so how much they get paid, what their lunch breaks should be, what the working day is, when you've got probation periods and stuff like this. So that would all be on the basically Fair Work Australia, and the legislation that governs that is actually the Fair Work Act 2009. So do try and remember that one, because it would be in a multiple choice more than likely if you're going for the multiple choice. So we covered this one before, basically with our 80-20 rule. So the personal services income legislation, what it's concerned about is employees being wrongly classified as subcontractors. So just make sure you read the questions and the answers that we've spoken about before, because some guys, you might say, oh yeah, it's got to do with 80-20, so that's got to be it. But actually read it, because that's what the legislation's about making sure that people who are actually working as subbies are actually getting their entitlements, because they're probably really employees. The difference between fixed and variable costs. So it's B, fixed costs like rent and car repayments don't change as the volume of the business increases and decreases. So you might, might have a showroom that you're using, so people can come in and pick, their tiles and their brickwork and all that sort of stuff. So those things aren't going to change because they're basically fixed. And your variable ones is obviously stuff that's going to vary. You might have your subcontractors and so on. They're going to be varying depending on the amount of work that we do, the more that we get in. Pay-as-you-go tax withholding, we did this one a couple of weeks ago. So basically it's a deduction from an employee's wage, basically that we pay to the ATO. So as you know, if you've ever got employees, we print out their pay slip and it says you've earned $500, $100 of that's tax, so I'm keeping the 100, you get 400. With the 100, I'm going to put it aside and basically give that to the tax office depending on when your reporting obligations are. So compulsory insurances, this is one that you want to know. So the compulsory insurances for domestic builders are basically homeowners warranty insurance, contract works, and public liability. So I know this is something that I know contract works, there's not so much compulsory, like it's not as if the VBA are going to say we're not going to give you your license if you don't have it, but where it becomes compulsory is that if you're working for clients and they're getting money, it's very unlikely that basically the bank is going to approve the contract if you don't have your insurance details. And that's why you look at the major domestic building contract and it's got it on there, because they want to know that if they're paying you to build a house, it gets up to lock-up stage and the owner's forked out 250 grand. If something happens and an arsonist comes and burns it down, that you've got the insurance there to get it back up to that stage again, because the bank isn't going to pay you again and pay you another 250 because they've then outlaid 500 grand and you're only at lock-up stage. So yeah, whilst the VBA are going to say give me your contract works insurance, which they will with your homeowner's warranty, basically your contract works, yeah, you're basically going to have it anyway if the banks are going to approve the work coming through. All right, the amount that the builder sells his services to a client in excess of his costs is known as basically the markup. So that's just talking about the percentage that we put on top. It's probably when you might read that sounds a little bit funny, but it's sort of similar to when we do almost our builder's margin. So what is the amount we're adding to our services for our costs is known as our markup. And that's basically the end of that one. So I did actually skip through that one pretty quickly because you guys probably found as well, a lot of that we sort of covered and probably does seem a little bit not so, what's the word I'm looking for, not so relevant now that we don't go in there with a business plan that we have to talk about. But by all means, there's still a few in there that we need to know, like that insurance, what the 80-20 rule is and stuff like that. So that's pretty much all I had tonight. So for the guys who it was their first night, I just basically go from the book from page 1 through to page 12. And so next week we'll be doing basically our subfloor layout. And what I'll do, because some guys are doing this for the first time, so I'll still be basically teaching it the same as it was last time, but I'll do up a couple of little exercises so you guys can actually do some different ones if you like. I'll just basically draw up a couple of plans and say, yep, okay, this is this is the size, and you guys can then go and work out what our footing type is, what our bearer spacing and span is, and then also determine what those basically joists and bearer sizes need to be. I'll just chuck that up there too, so you're not looking at a black screen. So that's what we'll be doing next week. So I said, if you've done this before and they go, oh, well, he's only going to go over exactly the same stuff, I will do a couple of new exercises for you and just put them up there. The only thing is, I actually don't have like an AutoCAD, so I'll just hand draw them up and basically put them on there. And I'll probably, once you log in, the guys who want those, I'll then email them over, and you guys can print them out, or even just look at it on your screen, I suppose. Look at it on your screen and basically do them from there. So yeah, I'll hang around if you guys have got any questions. And yeah, one or two of the guys are actually going for either their test or the interview in the next week. So for those guys, I think Michael's one of them, and there was someone else as well. So best of luck, guys. And if you want any questions that you're not unsure of before tomorrow, by all means, hang around and ask me. And I better take you off mute so you can ask me. You don't think I'm ignoring you. But yeah, best of luck. And as I said, I know it's easy for me to say because I'm not going in tomorrow, but definitely be confident, guys. You've done all this knowledge, all this training. I say to the guys, that I train, that realistically, when you signed on 6 months, 8 months ago, you obviously thought you had the basically, what's the word I'm looking for, the skill set to be going for that builder license, whether it's DBU, DBM, or a limited license. You signed on thinking, yep, I'm actually got the skill set to do that, and you thought that 6 or 8 months ago, and now with all this additional training you've had, think of how much better prepared you are now than then. So there's no reason not to go in confident. You'll definitely be nervous, but just think, basically go in, you've done the study, and yeah, and best of luck, and I'm sure that you'll smash it out. So by all means, send me an email and let me know how you go, and I'm sure you'll blitz it. All right, cool. So yeah, I've just got a question here from Ben. So what I'll do, if you're listening to the recording, guys, I'll just stop the recording now because the longer it goes, the longer it takes for me to basically upload it to YouTube. So yeah, that's the end of the recording, but I'll hang around and ask the guys, answer any